Hello, can you all hear me clearly?
Yes, miss.
Okay, so there are few more to log in. I hope they would log in when we have started the lecture. So, well, I welcome you all for the new semester. So, in this semester, I will be delivering the green supply chain management module for you all. So, how was the results last semester? Are you all happy with the results? No?
Yes, miss.
Only Amri is answering. So it's going to since we are going to conduct the online live lectures, so it would be more of a interactive session. It's not going to be like the recorded lecture. So I need all of you to answer the questions that I direct you with. Okay. So to start the module, first we'll look at your module outline first, so that you would be having an idea as to what sort of a module is this. Can you all see the screen? Is it
Yes,
visible?
miss.
Yes, miss.
Okay, so the module name is Green Supply Chain Management. So as the name itself suggests, we are going to learn about the green aspect with regards to supply chain management. So the module code is IM 4440. So is the enrollment key. Enrollment key is also same as the module code. The credit points, it's free. So if you are planning for the first class, maybe since you are in the final year, if you are planning for a GPA about 3.7, or maybe if you are somewhere around a second upper, so this module plays a significant role in determining your GPA since the credit points is free. So moving on, so the method of delivery is going to be 2-hour lecture and 2-hour tutorial. So these 2-hour tutorials, I would be conducting the tutorial where it is necessary. In most of the cases, I would be uploading the tutorial on the course web. You all will have to provide the answer. So it would be more like practice questions for your exam. So the introduction, you can read it because I have uploaded it in the course web. So these are the learning objectives. At the end of the module, at the end of this semester, you would be you must have achieved all these 5 objectives. So looking at the assessment criteria, most important criteria for you all. So when it comes to this module, 50% of your marks is based on the continuous assessments, whereas 50% goes for final examination. So here, even though it is indicated as out of 50%, 20% as midterm examination, I don't have any intention to conduct a midterm examination. Instead of a midterm examination, I'm planning to give an individual assignment for you all. What's your opinion on that? Would you like to have a midterm examination or else an individual assignment? You all can talk.
Assignment would do, miss.
Sorry, individual assignment.
Yeah.
Okay. Uh, Everyone agrees?
Yes, miss.
Yes.
Okay. It would be an individual assignment then. When it comes to the group project, I'm planning to give a group project based on research, just like what we have done in supplier relationship management. So this one also I'm planning to give, since you have the exposure to the research field now, I'm planning to give you a group project based on research when it comes to the green supply chain context. And the final examination is it's again going to be closed book examination if the corona goes off. So otherwise it would be same as the online examination that we have had last semester. So that's about it. And when it comes to the primary references, these would be the primary references. So once after I have started the first lecture for you all, I would be showing the reference that I would be using in the preparation of the content of the slides that I deliver. So you can download it from pdfdrive.com. It's available. So these are the content of the module. Uh, so we'll give it a start then. And also another thing, I have uploaded your delivery plan on the course web. So just check it. The The assessment dates also I think I have mentioned. So you can have a look at it. Now we'll move to the first lecture. Mm, okay. All of you can see the lecture slides, right?
Yes. Yes, miss.
Okay. So in the first lecture, we are going to discuss basically about the shift from the traditional supply chain to green supply chain. But before moving into traditional supply chain or green supply chain, can someone tell me, now you are in the last semester of your degree program, so can someone please tell me what is meant by a supply chain? Maybe Chatushka, what is a supply chain? What do you mean by a supply chain?
Uh,
Or someone else, maybe, yes, Chatushka?
Miss May, it's noise here. That's why
That's
I
okay.
mute.
That's okay. Can you tell
Uh,
me what is meant by a supply chain? What is a supply
mm,
chain?
Supply chain is a network.
Hmm?
Uh, mm,
Mm, it's a network of
it's
what?
of
Can someone help? Can someone help Chatushka? What is a supply chain? Kalani?
Uh, that's a process that is a product come to the manufacturer and supplier to the end customer.
Okay, good. Good try. Dulisha, are you here? Ah, yeah. Dulisha, what is meant by a supply chain?
Um, it's a connection of all the manufacturing organizations, which is facilitated through information flow, which would ultimately deliver the product to the customers.
Okay, good. So the supply chain doesn't limit only to the manufacturing organization. Basically, the supply chain refers to the flow of information and material from the point where you are going to get the customer order to the point where you are going to get it delivered to the customer. So everything in between, or everything as Chatushka mentioned, the network in between, we call it as the supply chain, the movement of information and material. So it doesn't limit only to the manufacturing organization, but also to the service rendering organizations. All right. So moving on to the today's session, we are going to learn about the shift from traditional supply chain to green supply chain. So this is the reference that I would be using in the preparation of my slides. So if you want to read in detail the points that I have mentioned in the slide, you can refer this particular book. Okay, so this is you can download this from pdfdrive.com. And these are the learning objectives for the day. So you would be learning how have supply chains evolved over the years. So maybe you would be able to help me in understanding as to how has the supply chains evolved in the past years. And the next one would be how are green supply chains differentiated from conventional ones. That means how is this so-called traditional supply chain is different from the green supply chain. And next, you would at the end of today's session, you would have an understanding as to what are the different types of supply chains that have emerged over the years. Why is environmental sustainability being integrated into modern business strategy? So why has it become so crucial for the business organization to integrate this so-called concept called sustainability in their modern business strategy? You would be having an idea about that. And why does transforming a conventional supply chain into green supply chain not always result in environmental savings? That also you would be learning. and what are the paradoxes in green supply chain. So these are the learning objectives for the day. So we'll move with the supply chain evolution. So can someone tell me where, in which era this supply chain had started? This logistics and supply chain concept, it runs back to which era? Military?
World War III.
Initially, logistics started in the military era.
Yes, exactly. If you can remember, Sir Alexander, the Maha Alexander, Sir Alexander also, when it comes to his times, so he has been having his camps, so near riverbanks and seaports. The reason was because it was easy for them to, for the transportation purposes, so that it would be, they would be able to conveniently have the needed materials to their camps via, maybe via seas, maybe via rivers. So it runs back to that particular era. So in ancient times, it says in ancient times, manufacturing of goods was directly dependent on the accessibility of raw materials. So basically in ancient times, since there was a like the limitation of the transport technology, it's not like now. In the past, the transportation had been really costly. So as a result of that, the accessibility of raw materials, they had limited the transportation only to gold and weapons. So since they were the most valuable. And in the last 100 years, supply chains have been evolving in order to respond to current ever-changing market needs. So we know now it's not like in the past, the supply chain has become really complicated. Can you tell me a few reasons why now the supply chain has become really complicated? I think everyone agrees with the statement that nowadays, not like in the past, it has become really complicated. Why? Why has it become very complicated? What are the reasons?
Globalization.
Yes, one may be because of globalization. Other than that, since because of globalization, now some of our suppliers, for some of the business organizations, suppliers may be in other countries. So they have to import the materials from other countries. Or else, maybe being located in Sri Lanka, they are delivering to a outside market, an international market. That means their customers are in other countries. Everything had happened mainly because of globalization. Globalization is only one reason. What may be the other reasons? Why has this supply chain management has become really complicated now? Globalization is one, very good. Other than that, Michelle is not here.
Innovation.
Innovation, especially the technological advancement. With the technological advancements, now the customer touchpoints has also increased. So with that, so wherever you go, maybe a restaurant, you put an update in FBS to I'm here. So if you are not happy with the particular process, you would quickly put an update. So it has become difficult for the business organizations to now manage these technological advancements as well. Other than that, the customer requirements has also been changing. Now they have become really demanding. It's not like in the past, from one customer to another customer, their demands are changing. For example, in the past, there has been a lot of the production has been more in the standardized production, but whereas now there are more customized production is happening, because from one customer to another customer, their expectations are different. So as a result of that, we have to do personal deliveries. The e-shops are there as a result of the technological advancements, and there are 24 hours open shops like 7-Eleven. So these are some of the results of how the supply chain had been evolving for the past year. So now we are here where we have 24-hour open shops, personal deliveries, e-shops. Likewise, these particular technological advancements, globalization and innovations, these things have made the supply chain management really complicated. So I hope the point is understood. So when we look at the evolution of supply chain over the years was highly dependent on the technological evolution and customer needs, as well as on the current market requirements. So here the particular figure shows several types of supply chains that have been developed over the years. Here, the first one is standard supply chain, lean supply chain, agile supply chain, and hybrid supply chain. So the standard supply chain is basically where the production has been happening limited to standardized products. So there has not been any customization involved in that particular production. So in that case, we call the supply chain with regards to that as a standard supply chain. So lean supply chain, what do you mean by lean supply chain? Lean supply chain. You have the first lecture today, right? Lean management. So in lean management, you must have learned what is meant by lean supply chain. So what is the main focus when it comes to lean supply chain? So these are different stages in supply chain when it comes to supply chain evolution. So first there had been standard supply chain where you have produced, where you have delivered the customer demands with regards to standardized products. So that we refer it as the standard supply chain. So after that, there has been an evolving stage as lean supply chain. So what is basically mean by lean supply chain? Lean, you must have learned about lean. Lean is basically about
Yes, minimization.
Eliminating the waste.
yes, you are trying to eliminate the waste. So that has been another stage in the evolving of supply chain. So most of the business later on after the standard supply chain process, they were focusing on minimizing the wastage in their supply chain. After that, the agile supply chain stage evolved. So what do you mean by the agile supply chain? Agility, you must have learned this term when it comes to operations and supply chain management module. Agility. Being agile, what do you mean by being agile?
Flexible.
Being flexible. So that means basically in agile supply chain, it simply means that in the supply chain, the supply chain means organized in such a way that they are in a possibility, they are in a they have the capability of delivering customized products to their customers. So based on the customer requirements, they are producing the product. So based on the order only, they are producing the product. So that is meant by the agile supply chain. So these are some of the stages that we have been having in the evolution of supply chain. So I'm sorry about the sound. There is the road is nearby. That's why. So after that, so we will move with the slide. So here, standard supply chain. Read what is there in the slide. So here it says, standard supply chain was designed to meet the customer needs for standard products that did not require adaptability and resource preservation. So in the standard supply chain, they have not been giving much of attention to customized products, as well as they were not very much concerned about preserving the preserving the resources. So standardized products are products that have fixed demand and do not have alterations in their traits or their design. So they are not being customized. The procurement of raw materials for their production is realized in copious, that means abundant in quantities. That basically means that in order to produce these standardized products, since there is a fixed demand, since it's not going to get fluctuated, there had been enough or abundant raw materials in quantities. Not like now. Now this resources has become extremely scarce, so that the business organizations are becoming really concerned about the preservation of the resources. But in the past, in the evolution time of standard supply chain, it was not the case. And when we move with the lean supply chain, was developed as an improvement on the standard supply chain. So based on the standard supply chain, after that the lean supply chain concept came into the play. The lean supply chain is aiming at ongoing development, mitigation of waste, and generally at eradicating all the actions that do not create an added value for the consumers. So basically what was done in the lean supply chain was that they have removed all those steps in the supply chain, all those processes in the supply chain that they view as which do not add value for the consumers. So basically by doing so, by eliminating those steps, they try to eliminate or they try to mitigate the waste. So that means if there is in the supply chain, if there is a step that doesn't add value for your consumers from the perspective of the consumers, if there is a step in the supply chain that does not add value, it simply means it's an additional cost for the supply chain. So why do you want to keep that step in the supply chain? So basically, if a business organization is focusing on the lean, having lean concept involved in the supply chain, they would let go of that particular step in their supply chain, which does not add value from the customer's point of view. Lean supply chains consider all the life cycle stages of a standard product and attempt to increase the supply chain's efficiency by decreasing the number of steps in the procedure, the time needed, and also all the relevant cost and risk. So basically, in lean supply chain, you are focusing on reducing the number of steps that does not add value from the consumer's point of view. And if the particular step is involved, it involves extra time as well. So that would be also taken out. And also they were focusing on having the relevant cost and relevant wastage. That means they try to have the minimum wastage in their supply chain. Next one is agile supply chain. An agile supply chain was initially designed to be flexible in unpredictable situations and adaptable to the respective market needs. So we know that when during an year there would be fluctuations in the demand. So it may be because of a seasonal time, like signaling in the New Year, or else it may be because of situations like COVID. It may be because of situations like the tsunami. As a result of that, we know that the market needs keeps on changing. So in order to cater that particular market need, let's wait until Zoom goes off. Okay, so in an agile supply chain, what happens is that basically in this sort of supply chain they are very flexible, as one of your friends mentioned. In an agile supply chain, they are very flexible, so they are in a position to face an unpredictable situation like maybe tsunami, maybe COVID situation. So they are in a position to meet the demand that is expected from the market. So in addition, agile supply chains can rapidly respond to an unexpected demand of non-standard innovative products, and the characteristics may vary depending on individual customer needs. Okay, so that is basically an agile supply chain. So we have talked about 3 stages in the evolution of supply chain. First one was standard supply chain, lean supply chain, and agile supply chain. Now we are going to move into the next stage. So this is the one that is in practice now. So this one we call it as the hybrid supply chain. Basically, hybrid simply means the combination of 2 things. So here the combination had been with regards to lean supply chain and agile supply chain. So you all can read what is there in the slide. So it says, the combination of the lean and agile supply chains resulted in the development of hybrid supply chain. So the hybrid supply chain is to meet the requirements of the hybrid products. So hybrid product simply means that it's going to be a customized product which is catered based on the customer requirements. That may be as a result of an unpredictable situation, or maybe because of the requirement of the customer itself. And also this product, what is meant by hybrid is that it is customized and also it is based on the lean concept, based on the minimum wastage, based on the minimum timing, based on the minimum number of steps that has to be there in the supply chain. Without having the steps that doesn't add value from the consumer's point of view, this product is being made. So hybrid products can be thought as the opposite of standard product. So standard supply chain, in the standard supply chain, I told you that they were focusing on standard products. So here in the hybrid supply chain, it's going to be the total opposite. What's happening here is that since it's the total opposites, these particular products would be adjustable to the customer preferences, as well as they are going to focus on the lean concept. Hybrid supply chains employ techniques such as product postponement, in which the product is partially assembled while it is full assembly spending depending on customer demand. So we know that some of the products, they are not full assembled. The reason is because if they are full assembled, that would again sometimes it would affect the cost. Sometimes it would be difficult for the transportation purposes. For example, we know that when it comes to Gumroad, they come and have the product assembled at homes. The reason is because if they are going to have everything assembled and take it to your home, maybe it's going to get damaged. As a result of that, they are going to come and fix it at your home. So that in that case, we see that Gumroad had adopted a hybrid supply chain in the distribution purposes. Okay, so I hope these concepts were clear for you. So what have we been discussing so far? Can someone summarize? What have we been discussing so far? Are you all sleeping? Did you switch on the computer? Are you all recording and none of you are in the seats?
No,
funny.
You are here. You are there, no? Vishay, what have we been discussing so far?
Stages of the supply chain.
What did you start
Traditional
with?
supply chain.
Yes. What
Then
else?
the supply evolution.
Yes. First we discussed about supply chain evolution, then various stages that had been there in the evolution. So we have discussed 4 particular stages: standard supply chain, lean supply chain, agile supply chain, and hybrid supply chain. Clear? So are the differences clear for you? Can you differentiate in between these concepts? Clear? Okay, now we are going to move into the next section. So here we are going to discuss as to how has been this shift from traditional or the conventional supply chain to lean supply chain. So let's focus what is there in the slide. It says traditionally, supply chain management focuses mainly on the maximization of consumer satisfaction and in the increase of business revenue and profitability. So may it be supply chain management, may it be marketing management, may it be human resource management. At the end of the day, if you are a profit-making organization, your ultimate intention is to increase the business revenue. That means to basically profit maximization. That would be via the consumer satisfaction. If you are a profit-making organization, if you are a non-profit making organization, the intention would be different. But here we are talking about profit making organizations. Okay. So, however, in the past or in the traditional supply chain management, focus has only been on maximizing the profit. So that had been the main issue. So later on, what happened because of this intention? Since the businesses had been going after this money concept, what was the result? So can someone comes into the interactive session and tell me, since most of the business organizations were focusing only the profit aspect, as a result of that, what happened? What happened?
They were harming the environment, maybe.
They were harming the environment. Yes, exactly. They were harming the environment. They were not concerned about the environmental aspect at all. They were focusing only the profitability aspect. As a result of that, a lot of environmental issues emerged. Okay, so this says traditional supply chains have been held accountable for generating massive amounts of emissions and waste and resource consumption, contributing to degradation of the environment. So as a result of the traditional supply chain, as a result of the business organizations having the intention only to profit maximization, these particular traditional supply chains had been accountable for generating massive amount of emission, maybe carbon emission. So likewise, very harmful gas for the environment they have emitted, as well as the waste, as well as the resource consumption. So they have not been sustainable at all. They were not considering about the future generation. So they were harming the environment. So this basically contributed to the degradation of the environment. So look at this. This is, what is this? What is this? It's a general question. This is the world map. This is the world map. So given in වෙනස්ද පොඩ්ඩක් ඉගෙන ගන්න ඉස්සර මේ ලංකාවේ නෙමෙයි මේ world map එක ලංකාවත් මේකේ තියෙනවා.
ලංකාවේ තියෙනවා.
ඒක මේ ලංකාවේ පොඩිනේ. So here look at the colors. So here the red color, you can see red color also in different shades. So given in this maroon color, it's a bit closer to maroon color. That means these particular areas are very much affected. These are some of the countries, some of the regions that are being affected by the climate change the most. So even the Asian region is among these. So here, look at these records. So we know that the global warming has become a huge issue nowadays. So look at the carbon dioxide emission and the extreme weather events. So from this is like the year is given here, you can't see it, it's not that clear. So this is from 1980 to 2019. It has been continuously increasing. Extreme weather events have been continuously increasing. So here, this is a percentage of occurrence of natural disasters by disaster type. So here it is mentioned flood, storm, earthquakes, extreme temperature, landslide, drought, wildfire, volcanic activity. So all these are some of the occurrence of the natural disasters. Okay. The reason why this has happened basically because of the traditional supply chain. They have been destroying the environment for so long, and now we are experiencing the effect of that. Okay, so we'll move on. So it's not only about the global aspect. It's not only about the world. Look at the Sri Lankan context. What has been happening in the past year? In 2019, you know that a lot of things had taken place in the Sri Lankan context. We know that there were drought and wildfire. So in the Ravana area, so if you can remember in 2019 August, and look at the color of the water. So this is the Ravana Falls. The color has drastically changed. Look at it. It actually looks like Ravana. Ravana is it's said to be a monster, no? Ravana vagema vela. Can you all see? So now we are going to watch a small video clip on the climate change. So basically the shift from the point I want to emphasize is that the shift from the traditional supply chain to green supply chain has happened basically because of this climate change, because of the harm that they have done to the environment. Now the environment is punishing us because of that. So we'll look at this particular video and come back. I'm planning to post this your recorded video on Eduscope. You are going to watch it again, no? If you don't want
Yes.
the you want the recording, right?
Yes,
Okay.
please.
Trying to share the screen. Check whether you can hear the sounds. Huh? I'm not sure. Can you hear the sounds?
No.
No, miss.
No?
ඒ මයික් ෆෝන් ඉයර්ෆෝන් එක ගැලවුණාද?
නෑ මේ ලැප්ටොප් එකේ මේ sounds අඩුයි මගේ. Let's see, I can do. Right. Recording කරලා
Right now, we're facing a man-made disaster of global scale. Our greatest threat in thousands of years, climate change. If we don't take action, the collapse of our civilizations and the extinction of much of the natural world is on the horizon. The world's people spoke. Their message is clear. Time is running out. The amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere now is 50% higher than it was in 1900. And not only are we piling in more and more carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, but we're chopping down the forests of the earth at a great rate. And the forests themselves are the most efficient consumers of carbon dioxide that there are on Earth. We're going to destroy the ground because the soil of a rainforest isn't very good. We are actually tampering with the climate of the earth and with the very atmosphere that we breathe. When we talk about the disappearance of the ozone layer, we don't know what will happen when the ozone layer goes. The world has become so fragile that we cannot subject the earth to the tortures we can now inflict upon it. When we talk about the greenhouse effect, we're talking about something that affects the entire earth. And these problems are like the death problems. They go to the root of the viability of the planet itself. If there's one thing that is biologically certain about the human species is that it is a human species, one species. If we don't stop the destruction of our natural world, nothing else will matter. Simply put, if we don't protect nature, we can't protect ourselves. is by a human solution. Never can we sit back and wait for miracles to save us. Miracles don't happen. Sweat happens. Efforts happens. Thought happens.
Okay, so that's it. So if we don't protect the environment, we can't protect our own self. So that is the essence of the video. So now do you see the reason why as to you have to like be keen on as to which extent the business organizations are harming the environment? Is it clear? Okay, so now let's move on. So when it comes to this shift from traditional supply chain, can you all see the slides now? You can see, right? Okay. So the shift from traditional supply chain to the green supply chain, it's basically happening mainly because of the climate change and because of the uh, maybe because of the climate changes like global warming, ozone depletion, maybe because of droughts. Because of these things, there seems to be a shift. So this shift basically happens mainly because of three main reasons. So these are the reasons, the transformation process that is happening from traditional supply chain to green supply chain happens mainly because of these three approaches. First one is the top-down approach. The top-down approach refers to the attempt of governments to control environmental impacts. So since the government has a responsibility in protecting the environment, since they are bound to protect the environment, there are certain rules and regulations that are being imposed by the governments. It may be in the local context, it may be in the global context. So the world institutions also have imposed some of the rules and regulations. So here, when it comes to the top-down approach, we are focusing, the focus is mostly towards the government, how the government control the environmental impact. So this can be accomplished with a varying enforcement strength from rough outlines and safe practice or conduct guidelines to strict legislation and auditing bodies. So in order to do that, in order to control the environmental impacts, as I told you, government has imposed some of the rules and regulations. They have taken strict legislation and they have formed auditing bodies and obligatory confirmers to structured environmental management schemes and so on. So there is a pressure coming from the government to the business organization. So that particular pressure, we call it as the top-down approach. So this has been one particular approach in order to have this transformation process from traditional supply chain to green supply chain. The next one is the private corporations. That means the business organizations itself, they are willing to contribute in this particular aspect in order to become in order to have a shift from traditional supply chain to green supply chain. The business organizations themselves involved in the task. It says private corporations under certain circumstances are also highly interested in planning and implementing green strategy. Since all of you are working now, so can you tell me on behalf of your organization, so now it's time to save the dignity of your organization, what are the steps taken by the particular organizations that you are currently working in order to have more of a green supply chain? What sort of strategies are they using? Can someone contribute? What sort of strategies? Amri, where have you been working? You have been working in a shipping line, no? Amri is not here.
And is ASB Freight. It's a freight forwarding company.
So what do they mainly do? What do they do? Normally, what do they do?
We do the export and the import part.
Export and import part. So, what basically have they shifted from traditional supply chain to green supply chain? Are they focusing on the environmental aspect? Maybe when we look at the transportation aspect, are they focusing on minimizing the carbon emission? What sort of strategies they have undertaken in order to do that? No? Malaka, you there?
Yes, ma'am.
You have been working now?
I worked
Where did you work? What's the company?
in a production company.
So if it is a production company, if it is a manufacturing organization company, it must have adopted the green supply chain practices, no? What sort of practices in your company have adopted?
They managed their scraps in very efficient way.
Okay, how
I
do
think
they
that's
manage? Yes, very good. So they manage their scrap. That means scrap means the waste. So minimizing waste is simply it means that you are protecting the environment in one aspect. So how have they minimized the scrap? What sort of strategies have they undertaken?
they sell their scraps to recycling company.
Okay, very
Recycling
good.
company.
They are selling their scrap to recycling company. Other than that, anyone else want to give the ideas? Tisuri?
Minimization of Facebook.
Minimization of wastage.
No,
Mishay?
paper. Paper.
Paperwork. Yes, very good. Exactly. When we look at, I told you, when it comes to the green supply chain, uh, it it doesn't limit only to the manufacturing organizations, but also to the service rendering organization. So when we look at the service rendering organization, it's not like we are not harming the environment. There are a lot of paperwork is been happening in the service rendering organization. So if we look at, so SLID itself is a service rendering organization. So just think how much of paper is being used by our organization. So if we take a initiative as to minimize the paperwork, it itself gives a particular contribution in protecting the environment. So having online examination would be one, having like so having the online lectures, it also sort of contributing to protecting the environment, because we wouldn't be using energy, we wouldn't be using the ACs, so those things are there. But also when it comes to the electricity, you also would be using electricity. I am also using electricity. So there are some shortcomings as well. But still, if a service rendering organization takes initiatives as to, just as Mishan mentioned, to minimize the paperwork, it would contribute in protecting the environment. Tisuri, would you like to contribute? Tisuri,
Miss.
You're working, right?
නෑ දැන් කරන්න.
කලින් කරන්නේ?
ඔව් කලින් කරා.
ඒකේ green supply chain නෑ?
නෑනේ.
නෑ?
John Kills. Miss, she was in
John
John
Kills.
Kills.
Come on,
No.
John Kills.
Oh, I was in DPL.
This is
Miss
getting
Chaturshri
recorded. This is getting recorded, and you are telling me that John Kills has not been adopting any green supply chain practices, is it?
Miss
DPL
මම හිටියේ
කරන්නේ?
ජෝන් කියස් නෙමෙයි.
DPL.
මිස් සරිත් දන්නවා. ඉදලන් MS එකේ හොඳට දන්නවා.
Sarit, where are you? Continue in the discussion. Are you sleeping? In the class also you are sleeping now? In the class also you are sleeping now? So no wonder if you are sleeping? No, ne? So you can contribute.
No.
What are the initiatives undertaken by MAS in order to contribute in protecting the environment? You are into procurement?
No, no, in finance department.
You're in finance department. So in the finance department, there must be a lot of paperwork, no? In Mars also, they
Yeah,
have taken some strategies to minimize the usage of paperwork.
yeah,
So if you are working in finance, you must be knowing, no, how much of money they are putting in order to adopt the, like to, maybe to adopt the green practices. What sort of strategies are they using, Mars? Lanathu? Sorry?
in
Anybody?
2025,
Yes? Yes?
they are planning to generate more renewable energy
Yeah.
than the consuming current operation.
In 2025, they are planning to reduce the.
They are planning to cut 75%.
Is it? Okay, good.
Generating more renewable energy than current consumption.
Okay, good.
And
So
they are planning to cut 75% water consumption in 2025.
Okay, good. So that means in the Sri Lankan context also now this shift has already happened. So my point is that so it's not there are, I told you there are three approaches. One was the top-down approach. Basically, the reason why the shift is happening in the business organization because of the government pressure. But when it comes to the bottom-up approach, the business organizations themselves realize that there is an importance of them to shift from the traditional supply chain to green supply chain. So as a result of that, they might they might do innovations, just like Sarif mentioned, Mars wants to cut down their energy wastage by 75% when it comes to 2025. Likewise, the companies themselves have some of the initiatives created in order to have this shift from traditional supply chain to green supply chain. So when we look at the reasons why the business organizations are having this intention, maybe because of there may be a lot of reasons. There would be genuine reasons as well as it may be because of some of the marketing purposes also they are doing this. So for example, there is, how many of you knew that there is a report called Global Best Green Brands that is published, there is a worldwide published report as Global Best Green Brands. So in there, the
What's the brand?
companies, it's Ford. I'll show you the list. So in there, what they do is that number one is Ford. It's actually the recent one has been published in 2014. After that, it was not, it didn't get published. So here in 2014, it had been Ford. So Ford is a automobile company. Being automobile company, how much of thinking they have to put in to become the global best green brand. So I'll show you the report now. I'll share the report for your information, just for your information, because I found it interesting. I have the 2014 report. So here in 2014, can you all see? Hope you all of you can see. Can see, right? Can see? Pen on it?
Yeah, miss.
Okay. So this is the best global green brand report. So here they are giving a gap score. That means gap score simply means that the performance score reduced by perception score. That means most of the business organizations are having the perception that they have adopted the green practices, but when it comes to the actual scenario, that might not be the case. So that's why they are having a gap score. So even though most of the business organizations, for marketing purposes, they tell that they are adopting the green practices in their supply chain, actually it's not happening. So here, if we look at in 2014, what has been the, so here, Ford has been number 1, Toyota number 2, Honda 3. So likewise, so basically it has been most of the automobile companies in the lead, it seems. So Nokia is in number 6, Panasonic is number 5. So this is just for your information. So I hope the report is clear. This slide set. Okay, so other than that, I'll tell you some other companies who themselves thought that this being green, going green, that means having green supply chain is important. And so just like Sarif mentioned, now Mars is having an intention to reduce their energy usage by 75% in 2025. Likewise, there are some other companies who had been having this intention in the past in order to reduce the energy wastage by 2020. For example, Maersk. Maersk is, it's one of the container companies. So being a container company, becoming green is extremely difficult. So because a lot of transportation is taking place. So it is a bit difficult to believe, but it's true that Maersk could, you might need to note it down because I have not given it in the slide. So Maersk has been having this intention to reduce the carbon dioxide emission by 25% for every container in 2020. So actually they have become successful in reducing 25% of the carbon emission by every container when it comes to 2020. Other than that, Toyota also, it's there in the, as I told you, it's there in the 2014 Best Global Green report as well. Toyota is one of the leading companies who is said to have green supply chain initiatives successfully initiated in their organization with emission reductions and green logistics processes. And other than that, a software company called Adobe Systems. So that's the first software company launched an ecological sensitive redesign of its popular software package about 4 years ago. So in some areas, plastic is no longer used. These are packed with one cardboard layer or over it. So Adobe Systems, Toyota, Ford, Maersk are some of the companies who are actually having the green supply chain initiative in their supply chain, and they have become successful in reducing the emissions. So now they are doing a very, it's not like they are not harming the environment. It has become, they have tried to minimize the harming. Okay, so we'll move on with the slides. So this, so I hope, next time. So here, when it comes to the approaches, we have discussed about the top-down approach and we have discussed about the bottom-up approach. And the next one is the mixture of both approaches. So it's the most commonly seen one. So basically, the shift from traditional supply chain to green supply chain happens not only because of the government pressure, not only because the companies want to have the shift, but basically because of the combination of both. A mixture of both approaches is the most common occurrence in most cases. Such as strategic purposes, a more realistic view combining the advantages of each sector, public and private, to compile a system that is both flexible and stable. As reality suggests, legislation and practice are communicating results, both influencing each other. So the the business organizations, the practicing of the particular initiatives, influencing the government legislation as well as the government legislation itself influence the practices that are being undertaken by the company. So that's about the transformation process with respect to the approaches. So can someone summarize me what we have done so far, what we have been discussing so far? කියන්න කෙනෙක් ඉන්න මම හොයලා කියන්නම් කවුද කියන්නේ කියලා. Irumi, are you there? Irumi?
Yeah, miss.
Irumi, what have we been discussing so far? Can you summarize?
Firstly, we have discussed the supply chain evolution.
Very good. Yes.
And then we have talked about why supply chain has become more complicated. That is because due to globalization, innovation, and technological advancement.
Yes.
So then we have talked about the steps like standard supply chain, lean supply chain, agile supply chain, and then comes to hybrid supply chain.
Very good.
Which is
yes.
both lean and agile supply chain. Next, we have talked about how the traditional supply chain was coming to green supply chain.
Yes.
And we discussed how different organizations have implemented green strategies like minimizing scraps in proper way, minimizing paperwork.
Yeah.
And we talk about the top-down approach, bottom-up, and mixed approach.
Yes, mixed approach is also called as the hybrid approach. Very good. Okay, let's move on. This is the last section of today's lecture. So you can refresh now. So this would be the last few slides. Okay. So now we are going to move into the paradoxes in green supply chain. So what do you mean by a paradox? So in your research, what you are trying to address would be a paradox, something that has not been addressed yet, and it's a paradox. Paradox කියන්නේ මොකක්ද? ප්‍රහේලිකා කියන්නේ මොකක්ද විශේෂ?
Flashpoint paradox.
Yeah, something like that. So ප්‍රහේලිකා කියන්නේ ඒක හරියම ප්‍රහේලිකාව. කොහොමද විසඳන්නේ කියලා තේරෙන්නේ. Something like that. It's a question we don't know how to solve it. Okay. So one paradox in green supply chain, in companies becoming green supply chain, is that first one, it says in profit making organization actions and decisions need to be made in accordance with this core strategical goal, often neglecting other parameters like environmental degradation. So especially when we look at this, so I told you we are mainly focusing on profit making organization. So in profit making organization, they are mainly focusing on reducing the costs and maximizing the profit only. So for these particular companies, they are neglecting the parameters like environmental degradation. So they are not much concerned about harming the environment. The concern is not genuine when it comes to the environmental aspect. So their only focus is on maximizing the profit. That is the exact reason why this top-down approach is required for this sort of organization. And the second point is mindset of shareholders on cost reduction. The point I want to convince here is that shareholders are again they are focusing only about the share that they are going to get from the profit. It may be based on the cost reduction. So if it's going to be the mindset of shareholders on cost reduction, it might be a bit difficult for the business organization, the management, to implement the green initiatives, because initially, in order to implement the green initiatives, it could involve certain costs. So suppose that you are going to have solar power energy. So in order to do that, you have to have a initial cost, initial capital has to be there. So if the shareholders, if the management is having difficulty in convincing the shareholders who are having this cost reduction mindset, again, having this shift would be difficult. And when it comes to just-in-time and door-to-door are both practices that introduce great flexibility and agility to the supply chain. What is the company that comes into your mind when you talk about just-in-time and door-to-door? Just-in-time and door-to-door. ඉන්දියාව කොට්ටු තෝසේ වඩේ වඩේ යනවා. You can't hear?
තේරුනේ නැහැ.
ඉන්දියාව කොට්ටු තෝසේ වඩේ වඩේ යනවා. You didn't hear? So
වෙන මොකුත් වෙන්නේ නැහැ නේ.
වෙන මොකුත් වෙන්නේ නැහැ. I'm in Ratnapura no. So dot area no. So just in time, the concept, the very moment you hear the word just in time, what comes into your mind? Which company? Just in time? මතක් වෙන්නේ නැද්ද company?
Toyota.
Toyota, ඒක තමයි. Toyota, I told you that Toyota is one of the best green, they are in the 6th place, I think. They are in the 6th place of 2014 green best green brands. So how have they become successful? If it is just in time, that means just in time and door to do. These both practices involve the transportation. So if it involves transportation, that means the emission happens. So that means you are again harming the environment. So being a company who has adapted just in time in their supply chain process, how do you think that Toyota could able to become one of the best green brands in the world, having just in time concept in their supply chain? So what sort of infrastructure they have in their company? So in order to reduce, yes, lean management.
Yeah.
Can you elaborate? Lean how? Lean means minimizing the wastage, no? You are talking about Toyota production systems and lean, no?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Having the material at the
Yes.
manufacturing site.
And yes, that's the point I wanted to take from you. So even though they have this just-in-time concept or the practice in the organization, the infrastructure is organized as such. They have the materials or the suppliers located very nearby to the production site. So by having done it, they were able to reduce the carbon emission. So when it comes to the supply chain, is just in time and door to door are extremely important practices in order to deliver a very good value to the customers. But it involves if the supplying company is located in one geographical area and if your company is located in one geographical area, if you are adopting just in time concept, that would create a lot of carbon emission because the trucks and trucks would go here and there, so time to time. So in that case, in a company who has adopted these practices, having green initiatives would be a little bit difficult. So it's a paradox. And the next one is the increase of e-commerce sales channels in retail, but also in business to business, which has contributed to the significant increase of the share of road transportation. So in B2B business, in B2B businesses, so a lot of transportation again happening. So it also creates, it also influences the environment. And also when it comes to the e-commerce, we talk about e-commerce a lot nowadays. So in e-commerce, warehousing is extremely important. So if you are going to have a warehouse with bulk volume of product, in that case, again, it needs energy because maybe in order to have lighting system in order to have, if it is a particular product that needs to be kept under a certain temperature. Again, the infrastructure in the warehouse has to be again, it would involve a lot of energy. So these are some of the paradoxes when it comes to green supply chain. So that's it. So that's the end of the lecture. So to summarize, this is what we have done today. So we have discussed about supply chain evolution. We have discussed about traditional supply chain to green supply chain, the shift. So the reasons for the above shift, it's basically because of the climate changes and maybe global warming, droughts, those things. As a result of that, this change is happening so fast now. So the reason why this transformation process is happening may be because of three approaches. One is top-down approach, bottom-up approach, and the hybrid approach. And there are some paradoxes in green supply chain that we have discussed. So that's it for today. So if you have any questions, clarifications, or would this time be okay for you all to conduct the lecture? Would you like to have online lectures or recorded lectures?
Anything
Like,
Online live lectures.
live is better, no?
Live is better. Yes, it's
uh,
better. I also think it's better because otherwise I'm teaching and it's difficult without having interactions from the students. So we will continue it like this then. So no
the
questions.
recording be available?
Yes, yes, I'm going to make it available now. I will be uploading to EduScore, so you can leave it. So in case if you are going to, if you have something urgent to attend, if you are going to miss the online live lecture, please inform me because we have to take the attendance. We have to track the attendance of students for the online live lecture. Okay, so then let's call it a day today. All of you be safe, be home, so be careful. If you are traveling a lot, try to limit traveling. Okay, thank you. You all can leave there. I'll end the meeting.
Thank you, Miss.
Okay,
Amen.
okay,
Bye.
bye, bye, good night.
Bye.